I'm Jen Burson. I'm the founder of Generation PR and the creator of the Profitable PR Pros community and our hub of resources for PR professionals, from teaching you how to hone your skills all the way to running a profitable agency. And this topic, it's a very common question. A member of our programs is asked whether she should let a client pause, one who requested a pause. They asked to pause immediately, and her contract says that it requires a 30-day advance written notice to stop service. And this is something that we get a lot. You know, the other thing we'll add in is not just a pause, but like a flat out termination of your agreement, and especially with no notice. So we're going to just dive into it. So for me, it's like an approach. And, you know, the approach applies to all of the ways that I run my business and what I try to share with others as a really good approach to run your business. So in general, it's hard to know whether, you know, you should be strict on enforcing your contract, you know, setting your boundaries and not budging, or, you know, kind of approach it with showing your clients grace, giving them a little wiggle room, you know, just, or with regard to other clauses in your contract that, you know, like, for example, late fees and stuff like that. I use that as a point of leverage, but I never, if they're late on a contract, I'm never like, okay, well, it's the 11th business day, like interest is starting to accrue. No, it's more like it's there as a leverage point if they don't pay, and then we can go back and get interest and kind of mention that that's an option. So in general, it's just like your overall approach to how you look at your contract, how you enforce it. Are you like hardline stickler, or are you coming into this relationship with the client as a partnership? So we want to talk about what you can do in this situation, and there's a few options. And I'm going to share some good advice from our community and give attribution to the people who said it. So Tony Boylan, he said, how much do you value having them as a client? If one of your clients asks to pause their services, you need to consider how much you enjoy working with that client. If it's a client you enjoy having and they have a legitimate issue, seriously consider accommodating that pause in services. You can have a specific pause agreement written into your contracts to cover the 30-day cancellation issue. If you say no, they might execute the 30-day cancellation, meaning that if you're like, no, you can't pause services, then they'll say, okay, we're giving you 30 days notice and we're terminating the contract, rather than preserving the long-term relationship. And I agree with that advice. I think that's very solid advice. And then Nelson said, you can make them stick to the contract. If they've informed you about a pause or termination after the notice period starts, too bad for them, they still pay you. You're allowed to set boundaries and enforce them. It's a personal decision for you. And then Adrienne left a comment kind of reminding someone of a contract that they signed doesn't mean you lack empathy or that you aren't kind. Once you start operating as if you aren't a business, customers will treat you accordingly. Both very valid points. And Nelson is saying, with my experience, the CEO of a tech company decided to try and pause my services. I very politely told him to reread his contract and that there was no mechanism in it that would enable him to do this. He then backed off and I got paid last week. Yeah, so that's an option that could work. We're going to talk about how to approach this specifically. Some more advice from our community on this topic. Kristen McAdam said, for me, I approach business relationships with empathy and kindness. Treating people well always comes back tenfold. Desiree Mazencup said, you never know what they're going through, and I've always found that letting them regroup had way better outcomes than we would have by guilt tripping them or even enforcing a contract or a contractual provision. Kristen Greco Elworthy said, I always allow a pause if needed. It is almost always due to difficult circumstances or, say, a delay in a product launch. I have found those clients nearly always return, and they are great sources of referrals. I will say our contract requires 30 days, but I'm happy to put a pause effective now so that they're aware that we made an exception. I agree with Kristen on that. You know, I think these were all really kind of valid points. But here's some advice I would give just for you to consider the situation and how you feel about the way you want to proceed. So I think it's important to figure out why they want to pause or stop services, or if they want to terminate, pause, or just terminate services. If you've been doing a good job and you feel the results are, great, or like they've been happy with the results, there's usually a reason why. So is it like funding? Is it a funding issue? Typically for us, it is a product launch or a brand launch delay. So supply chain issues are pushing launches back, but there's always, a reason. And if they want to pause, remember that you're entering into a partnership with them. And I feel like I want to approach that by being a good partner. So I think about the long-term relationship with the client, and I try not to burn any bridges. Like, that's how I think about it, especially the point that clients go out into the world and sing your praises, and it's like the best testimonial to how you work and the quality of your work. So I want those people to either part ways for good or part ways temporarily with like a really good feeling about us as partners to them. So the big piece is that you must get paid for what you've done and make sure you have a reasonable amount of notice so that you can plan for the pause or loss of clients in your business. If they're requesting a pause, you want to make sure that you get paid. So if you've already done the work and there's an outstanding invoice for that month, you want to get paid on that month. You want to ensure that the work you've already done for that month, no matter how many days, plus the fact that you sent an invoice and you're bringing your team into work on that account, you're counting on that revenue. It's like money you've already kind of allocated, right? Resources you've allocated. If they're requesting to pause, we like to discourage those stops and starts. We say like process cumulative, and we're building on the efforts that we're making and we're starting to get traction. And when there's stops and starts, it completely freezes the momentum and we lose opportunities. We're turning down leads that we have already generated, and process cumulative, and it's ongoing and it snowballs. And so stops and starts are worse for you because it's like ramping back up and then dropping off a cliff and then trying to ramp back up again. So I think that tactic is important to let them know really how press works, and that them pausing is to their detriment. Yeah, they may save money, but they're going to see results a lot later, and they're going to miss opportunities that you've already started cooking up for them. How long do you pause service before revisiting the project? Well, I'll find out from them how long it is. If it's like 3 months because of a project, so first of all, I don't do projects. We do retainers. So I would revisit the monthly retainer and pick back up. I would extend the date out. So if we were going to end in November, but I have 3 months, I'll go back out to like end of January. Just tack it on to the end of the agreement, and maybe pull up an amendment. So it's a simple like supplemental amendment that you all agree on what's going to happen and when. So that's fair, but discourage those stops and starts. And what happens if a huge story hits during that pause time? It depends what kind of huge story. So if it's a seed that you planted, I try to look at the results that we generate for our clients also as our results. And if I drummed up a huge story, I'm going to want to convert that to a feature because it only makes us look good. So if you can pass it off to the client without too much time on your hands to get it to come to fruition, I would try that approach. If you can do it in a way where you're not actually maybe sharing the contact, maybe you do want to share the contact if it's one story and they want an interview or there's a lot of back and forth. What I would try to do is secure the feature because it shows goodwill and it's also your result. It's your credibility. Those are things you earned. A huge story that you placed, you earned that. Like, I want that. Every time I get a hit, it's a hit for my firm showing what we can do, and it only makes us better and bring in better clients. So I also think it shows goodwill and partnership, and they're like, wow, that was really cool of you. So yeah, that's how I would approach it. I would never be like, no, I am not even answering email because they are on pause. The other thing that you can consider and maybe bring up is see if you can consult to them in some way for a reduced fee or in lieu of regular services at the same rate. See if there's something like, for example, sometimes they sign a contract and you get a little started and then you're looking over their assets and you're like, your images suck and your website is atrocious and I can't work like this. But they say, oh, well, we're actually going to be redoing our website in the next 3 months. Well, you don't want to be on retainer to do PR outreach, but what if you are on a contract for consulting so that they have access to you, you can give input and insight from the PR perspective so that you're guiding their efforts in a way where the outcomes they produce are going to make your job easier once they're ready to go and you're working as their PR representative. So if you can get a consulting contract and say, hey, like, I want to be accessible to you. This is how much it is per month. We'll do 3-month minimum and it's going to get you this many hours and we'll talk, we'll Vox, whatever, however you want to do it. But that way you're still in the mix. Like and what if they go through this whole effort and it's terrible and you're like, this isn't even good. So you can kind of give some input there that's valuable to them to get the most out of that time and expense. And you get paid as a consultant. And you're kind of keeping yourself engaged while also showing flexibility that the retainer fee will kick in when you're actually doing the earned media services. Okay. So if they want to pause, what can you be doing during the pause? And think about that so that you can offer it to them that way. So find out the reason that they want to pause or terminate and see how you can make it work for both of you. Like a set period for a pause with guidelines like, okay, we can hold on our services for these reasons for 3 months, but then we have to, reevaluate. Or you can even say, but at that point, services will start again, and maybe there's something that you could be doing in that period to lend your expertise to some other efforts they're making or reasons that they're pausing. Again, a consulting thing or a set period of time where you're like 3 months time out, but then we have to, kick back in again. If you're really truly pausing, it cannot be indefinite. Okay. How do you prevent this termination request or an unexpected pause when you're working with clients? So you can add a clause in your contracts that'll protect yourself against these terminations or unexpected pauses, so you can work in a certain time frame that a client must notify you if they need to pause or terminate. So we have 30 days, and at the end of the contract, it actually just rolls over and renews. And you want to have a clause in place that is going to protect you. So, like 30 days or whatever, what is that time frame? I wouldn't put in a pause, I'd put in like 30 days notice. And it's usually for certain things like fraud or conduct or whatever. No one's ever said to me, like, I need to find a way to kick in that termination clause. They'll just say, hey, listen, it's like business owner to business owner or like on the level. Let's have a conversation. Here's what we're dealing with. This is what we want to do. And we discuss how that looks. But you can have this clause in place, but you don't necessarily need to hold your clients to that clause. So look at every situation on a case-by-case basis. You can fall back on your contract if you need it, but you can also approach these situations as an understanding, empathetic human. We're all people, we're all doing the best we can, trying to run our businesses. And look, if a client leaves, it's not like my business goes away. My mindset is always, I can do it again. I did it before. I can land another client again. I know how to do it. And this is why we want to teach you how to have a solid foundation of consistent, predictable, recurring retainer revenue, so that if this happens and if a client leaves or pauses, you're not scrambling to figure out how to pay your rent or pay your team or whatever. Like, those, clients can come and go, but you still have a business. And this is just the nature of our business. They leave, it's not personal. So think about that. And see yourself as an agency owner and thoroughly vet your clients, right? We talk about red flags. You should not be saying yes to every client that knocks on your door. If you only work with high-end clients, they are so much less likely to have these billing issues. They are less likely to request an immediate pause or termination in services. Budgets are set so far in advance, and they've already allocated the funds. Like, in their mind, it's already spent. It's not like they're scrounging to pay you. And when I say they're much less likely to have a billing issue, a lot of times the challenge with larger clients, especially, billion-dollar companies that are publicly traded, the challenge is that they have different terms. So they're going to want a longer payment window. And these discussions happen up front as you're negotiating a contract. And sometimes to work with those big clients, you have to bend a little. These are the challenges with larger clients, is that the terms are usually a little bit more favorable to them, and you have to be willing to carry a little longer, sometimes 90 days, which is really scary. Clients at that moment when we're doing the contract will ask for different terms, and I usually try to get them within 30 days. And sometimes I'll agree to 45 if it's a big daddy client and I'm like, gotta be a team player. But the scary thing is when you're out of pocket on expenses. And also, like, sometimes for a client of the caliber, you have to be a team player. You have to just be like, I can make this work. I got to do it because we want the business. So you can put that, something in there. But if this comes up all the time, if these situations are like a frequent occurrence in your agency, it might be an indicator. Like I said before, high-end clients are not going to have stops and starts. If you're feeling that, and it happens a lot, it's usually those smaller clients. It's usually ones where you have that personal connection to the founder. It is an indicator that you probably need to niche down even more, because that will give you the expertise you need to be a sought after go-to authority in your space. Like, clients will only want you because you are the go-to for that industry, which allows you to raise your prices. And that will help you adjust the caliber of your target ideal client. Or you can vet clients more before you accept them. So we talk about red flags. Like, you might see those red flags, but you talk yourself out of it and then later live to regret it, because it is just true fact. Like, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and the clients you make an exception for are going to suck the life out of you and make you regret ever saying yes to them. So you may need to pay attention to those red flags, niche down, raise your prices. I just feel like, the agency model of yesteryear is a thing of the past. The paradigm has shifted, and I want to help guide as many people as I can into this new era of being in control of how we set up our businesses, being in control of who we get to work with or who gets to work with us, choosing our clients, doing things that light us up, growing and scaling profitable businesses that allow you to have a life. Things have shifted. The paradigm has shifted. When I started my business 17 years ago, there wasn't anything out there to help. It's just trial and error and figuring it out and all of that. And I just want to be part of that change. My purpose here is to empower all of us, right? If you want to be a mom, if you want to work from wherever, you don't want to sit around waiting for someone to be like, okay, come grind away for us. Let us suck the life out of you and, bleed you dry. and need you have to take mental health days, and we're going to pay you the bare minimum, because these jobs are so coveted. So like, you're lucky to be here. Forget that. Forget that. It does not have to be like that. I promise you, it does not have to be like that. And you know what? Like, their loss, and you are going to just run circles around them, diving into your expertise and running the business that lights you up. Yes. So that's what I have for you today. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much for being here. Bye.